Here is a country of great contrast.
Great civilization of antiquity.
A foreign country a step away.
Welcome to the Casa de Cavazos. We're back.
This is Ada Cavazos Cuellar, recording in South Texas.
And this is Justin Cavazos coming in from Chicago. Nathan Cavazos is very ill today and can't join us, but I'm sure he'll correct us and tell us his opinions and other things when he comes back.
Yeah, he might have norovirus, so he decided to quarantine.
How do you suppose he got that?
I have no idea. Maybe someone he came into contact with at work or something.
Now, maybe he ate something weird.
Yes. So we're back in the grind. Holiday season is pretty much over. We had a good holiday season.
Yeah.
Had some good food, good drinks. What were the highlights of your South Texas trip?
I don't know. I feel like whenever I go down, I have to have like tacos and tamales and stuff. But like around the holidays, like everyone's family makes like a shitload of tamales. And they're like, if you go visit anyone at any point after like Christmas Eve, you will leave with more tamales. And it's endless. I was talking to a couple people today. They like tamales. They're not Hispanic, but they were unaware that it's mostly lard. It's corn and lard. That's why it's so good. And it's like eating that all the time. And then, like, of course, when you're down there, you want to make sure that you're eating Mexican food. So you go out for tacos or whatever. And then you visit the people who are also traveling down home for the holidays who might live elsewhere, or just other people who are visiting, like, you know, Jared's partner or brother's partner coming in. And they come in at different times, so they want the whole experience too. So then you do the whole food gauntlet all over again. You know, between the restaurants, the bars, tacos, beans, rice, you name it. Is that your day-to-day life while you're living down there?
It's not my day-to-day life, but I think that a lot of people do eat these foods on a more regular basis. I indulge pretty much during the holidays or during like an event. By an event, I might mean the Super Bowl. But this holiday season, I had about 10 to 15 tamales. I had several tacos, barbacoa tacos.
Daily?
Not daily, but I think something was happening every single day. I also had the trash can meal, which is IHOP, specifically the chicken fried steak with 2 eggs, hash browns, and 2 pancakes. I threw that down.
Yeah, I want to be clear that Ada here is not saying that that's a garbage meal. Ada's moniker was the trash can after running a half marathon and destroying an entire plate of food at IHOP. It might have been more food than what you had at that IHOP visit.
I think it was the exact same meal. And I did not run this day, so that's interesting how I was still able to eat it fully.
Maybe you'll switch from half marathon training to competitive eating.
Also had some drinks. Had a really good margarita at the RGV Vipers game. We had some wine.
Yeah, I feel like on the margaritas, it's very interesting. Like when you're living in a major city like Chicago, you go to the sports arenas and you're paying like $12 to $20 for a basic cocktail or for a super basic beer. You know, your classics like your Bud Lights or your Michelob Ultras you can get for way cheaper elsewhere. And then you go to a G League game in the Rio Grande Valley and you get a full-on frozen margarita with all the fixings. It's got chamoy, it's got chile on the straw, it's got like frozen mango in it, it's got like a maraschino cherry, unlike anywhere else. I'm under the impression too that with all the concessions, pickled jalapenos aren't as common elsewhere, which is very sad.
Yeah. So I don't think I'll go to a lot more RGV Vipers games because I just don't drive out that far. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I have to say it was a really great product. The NBA players or the almost NBA players were really good. Really good experience.
Yeah, some of them are former NBA players too. Like they've had contracts as recent as the past couple of seasons, like on the Santa Cruz Warriors. Kevin Knox II, who was a top 10 pick quite a few years ago at this point, but is still in playing shape and playing age. Like he's made like over $20 million on his NBA contracts, but he's still grinding away at these Vipers games, traveling all the way from the Bay Area to South Texas.
Yeah, it was really good. Really good quality play. It really looks like NBA players.
Yeah, I was really sad because they have these promotions. So if you're not familiar with Texas and South Texas in particular, there's a tamales chain called Delia's Tamales, and they're a major sponsor for the RGV Vipers games. And if the RGV Vipers, the home team, score 12 3-pointers in a game, a dozen, then you get a buy one get free dozen tamales. So every time anyone shoots a three, they say, "And that was your third Delia's Tamales 3."
So you're saying the RGV Vipers are sponsored by Lard. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, high level athletics and high calories go hand in hand. McDonald's had a bunch of campaigns, so why not make it true to the region?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like being there and being on vacation, it's really easy to drink every day as you're celebrating. You're around with family. I feel like my liver was hurting a little bit, so I decided to take a break a few of the days. It's amazing how much the drinking culture in America looks differently to you, even if you take a small step back from it. I remember like going out to a bar. It was probably on the 30th because the next night was New Year's Eve. And I'm like, well, it's New Year's Eve. I'm probably gonna be drinking a bit there, so maybe I shouldn't drink while I'm at the bar. Like I'm gonna go drink a non-alcoholic beer. And as soon as you have the non-alcoholic beer, there's a bunch of questions. Like, are you sober? Like, when did you stop drinking? I was like, no, I didn't stop drinking. I literally drank with you yesterday. But then after that, the concern is not about the alcohol. Like, oh, like it's because of the calories, right? Like, oh, like it's lower calorie than a regular beer. It's like, no, it's 50 calories. It's just something that I want to drink because I like how it tastes, because I like the taste of beer, and I'm trying to hang out here and patronize the establishment instead of just taking up their time. A lot of people have a lot of questions when you don't want to drink alcohol.
I think that's the culture in America, and it's even more so in South Texas. I think the Mexican culture is also very pro alcohol.
Yeah, like how many beers a day do you think the average Mexican American drinks in the Valley?
Well, I don't know. I don't have stats on that, so I don't like to comment if I don't have stats. But I've definitely had patients that have said things to me like, "Oh, I didn't think I drank a lot. I just had a 6-pack after work every day." It's like, that's not normal. That's a lot of alcohol, and that's why you have liver cirrhosis now.
Yeah, I mean, if that's after work, I wonder what the weekends are like. I mean, it's
Right.
probably more, right? So someone's probably drinking like possibly over 50 beers a week. I remember my wife, who went to med school in Indiana, when she was doing her rotations, she heard similar things from the folks in Indiana. Like, not necessarily Mexican. I feel like it's a certain like working class thing that we've acquired over time. And also, like, in terms of like activities for adults, we don't really emphasize recreation in the same way that other countries do. Like maybe like taking a walk, or going out to like this bakery, or having some like live music in the street or whatever, right? We get isolated and we decide like I'm gonna drink 6 beers tonight because that's the normal thing. That's what my friends do. When my friends come over, we down a 30 rack. We finish all that beer.
I think also there's a parallel between rural Indiana and South Texas because there's not a lot to do in these areas. I think I mentioned it during these last 2 weeks. There's not a lot to do here other than eat and drink. Go to the movies, I guess. There's just not a lot of recreation, especially when it's super hot. Where are you going to walk to? You're going to be getting heat exhaustion, heat stroke just with a normal walk.
Yeah, even late at night. And when you go to the movies nowadays, you can eat and drink there too.
That's true.
You can have like a craft beer or like a hard liquor cocktail and just watch a movie and hang out.
Yeah. So alcohol is very much part of the culture. A bit more in the Mexican culture, maybe also areas like rural Indiana and other rural areas. But obviously, there are a lot of bad things about alcohol.
Yeah, what's going on with the current administration? They released something, right, on their way out about alcohol?
Yeah, so the Surgeon General basically said that alcohol is carcinogenic and just wants to make people aware of that. So they want to put warnings on alcohol that it's carcinogenic.
Have you seen the research? Do you know what you think about that so far?
I mean, it's very clear that heavy alcohol drinking is associated with cancer and with liver cirrhosis. I guess the question is there any point where it's okay? Like, is one drink a day okay for a man? Or is that not even okay? I think that's the question. I think at this point, you should err on the side of caution and drink as little as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good idea to make people aware that it's bad for you. I think sometimes people, or doctors specifically, assume that people will know.
Yeah.
But people don't often just consider these things common sense things. And so they had a stat that apparently 40% of people didn't even realize that alcohol could cause cancer.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there are so many other health factors that alcohol can affect negatively, between like liver failure, erectile dysfunction, and a lot of other stuff that people care a lot about. And like cancer isn't at top of mind with all of that. Drinking it still can be fun, right? There were some studies about how like drinking in moderation could have some health benefits, but it might not be as bad as we thought. I read something that was questioning the methods of some of those studies. Not necessarily the methods, but like there are some holes in it. Like the fact that there weren't a lot of younger drinkers who were surveyed in those results. So if there was a drinker who was say in like their 50s or 60s in the survey, they were alive. As opposed to a lot of the people who haven't made it that far when they've drank that much.
Well, and that's the thing about medicine. A lot of time the data is going to be imperfect because we're not robots that we can just do like these perfect studies on as humans. And so sometimes we'll get imperfect information and you just kind of do the best you can with it. And I think you have to consider this like other things in life, right? I think you have to have a happy medium that's good for you as far as your own life. So I don't know if you've heard about that guy, Brian Johnson, who's doing all these things to prolong his life.
Oh, is that like the millionaire who gets blood from his own son and then gives blood to his father and gets all these surgeries?
Yes, and he looks like a vampire. So I think you kind of have to have a happy medium between him and like this person who's just chain smoking constantly, drinking a bottle of liquor every day, eating McDonald's every day, just doing everything horrible to their body. And you have to have a happy medium, like accept the risk that you feel comfortable with. As long as you're not harming other people, of course, drinking and driving, things like that. You have to make that decision for yourself. Like, yeah, maybe if you drink 2 drinks a day, maybe your life will be shortened a little bit. But if that makes you happy, maybe that's okay for you.
Yeah, I mean, how do you even begin to educate people on that? I feel like with our culture, we have such like a hard abstinence measure with a lot of things, especially in the South. So like, I don't know, like teachers are not going to be educating students at 18 what drinking is going to be like when they're 21 or even earlier, right? It's not like there are going to be classes in college too where they're going to be like, well, this is what alcohol does to your body. They're just going to learn it by doing.
Yeah, I try to talk to my daughter about it. Unfortunately, her dad had liver cirrhosis, so she knows about it. She knows that it's unhealthy. We talk about it. But at the same time, she'll ask me, well, why do you drink? And I say, I only really drink during special events, like during holidays. It's not a good thing, but there are certain times that maybe it's okay to drink a little bit. Mm-hmm. So who knows where that's going to go in her mind as she gets older.
I mean, I feel like the level of enjoyment to the risk is much can be said about like foods that are bad for you but are delicious.
Yes.
You can decide like I'm going to have this joy on the one hand, but I'm aware of the health effects it's going to have on me. Like if I eat an entire bag of Takis, I know what's going to happen to me later, but
yeah, probably abdominal pain, diarrhea or something.
Yeah, you don't need norovirus for that. You can inflict it on yourself.
Yes. Yeah, and that is kind of my thing during the holidays. So I just talked about what I ate and drank, and I just do that during a short time period. And once it's just regular January, then I don't do that anymore. For the most part, I mean, if someone has a birthday or something, someone comes over, we might order a pizza or something, but it's not, in my mind, excessive.
Yep. It can easily spiral out. We're all being careful about it, but we're all trying to have some fun. Got to pour one out for all of those people who, aren't with us today because of drinking or other reasons, but we can also pour one out for Selena Quintanilla, who was killed quite a few years ago today. Her murder is actually coming up for parole. How many years has that woman been in prison?
So I think we're coming on 30 years.
Damn.
So Selena Quintanilla Perez was killed in 1995. So I don't think you remember it because you were about 2.5 or so.
Mm-mm. No, we were dealing with something else at the time. You know.
Well, also, I don't think you're going to remember at that age. But I was in 7th grade. I remember where I was. I was in Mr. Castro's classroom in 7th grade. Someone came in. I think they went to the bathroom or something. While they were out there, they found out that Selena had been killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I heard about it. I think it didn't hit me like it would have as a college student.
Yeah.
And also, I think I still didn't really understand death.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't really understand that I was mortal still up to a certain point.
You're like, I can live forever.
I don't know. I just didn't really think about mortality. And so it wasn't like earth shaking for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's only afterwards that I have really understood and looked into it more that it's like, man, that was terrible. And the whole thing was crazy.
Yeah.
She was only 23.
Mm-hmm.
She had accomplished so much already. She was starting to get into English language singing. If you look at her catalog of songs, she'd done so much. And to think that somebody who basically was stealing from her decided to just kill her is terrible.
Yeah. That's nuts. Like right when she was on the cusp of really crossing over with a lot of audiences, like she was already a massive sensation in the Spanish language music market, and just a huge symbol for a lot of people, especially in Texas. You know, she still has that statue, the memorial statue over in Corpus Christi, which is like about a 2-hour drive away from you, which is sometimes as close as things get together in Texas. Yeah, but that's massive. How much an impact something like that can have on a community. Very curious to hear about what you think about this parole thing, because I don't know. The United States is a very punitive country. I think we've realized at a certain point, of course, like murder is not okay, but it's just amazing to see people getting out for those kinds of things. I mean, I learned kind of recently that if you kill someone in Japan, you might get like 10 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Depends on circumstances, of course, and the same thing for the States.
Yeah. I think that it's society's decision to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
I think what society will accept. I have seen memes, I don't know if you've seen them, where people have literally, within the last year, posted Happy National Hispanic Month to everyone but Selena's killer. Like, people really, really hate this woman. They just think that it was at another level, that you snuffed out the life of this super talented 23-year-old who actually tried to help her. Like, this lady tried to lie to her that she had been raped.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how she got Selena to come to the motel and help her out. But it was all a plot, it looks like, to kill her.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on what society wants to do. I think that 30 years is a long time, but I also think it'd be reasonable to say, look at what you did to this massive talent at age 23 and say, you got to stay in jail.
Yeah, it's Yolanda Saldivar.
Yes.
She used to be the president of the fan club.
Don't even want to say her name. It's like Voldemort.
Well, you say that name. That's
He's
terrible.
fake, though. He's fake.
Well, I don't know. I feel like depending on the country, too, there's a culture of rehabilitation versus just pure punitive measures in the prison system.
Yeah.
Can someone's transgression be so great that they cannot be redeemed or rehabilitated at all? Maybe that's why you can only get put away for 10 years in Japan for killing someone, right? Maybe they do have confidence that they can rehabilitate someone.
I mean, I'm sure that at this point she's probably rehabilitated, but I think that people are going to be pissed off in Texas if she gets out.
Mm-hmm.
I was also wondering what you thought about her voice, because as you know, I am very unsophisticated in terms of music, and I didn't know if you thought she had exceptional talent as a vocalist.
I wasn't really around when she was alive. Like, I wasn't conscious as a human being. I was a child. I was probably still like shitting myself at the time that happened. But I've definitely seen videos. Like, mom would play some of her songs, and they would come on the radio. They were pretty ubiquitous. It was hard to not be
Yeah.
able to listen to her. And, there's a lot of talent there, a lot of character in the voice. I mean, there was that Astrodome concert that she had where she
Yes.
wore like that sparkly purple outfit. She's singing so passionately about everything. There's so much color in her voice. Like she means what she's singing. There's like this iconic image of her microphone that still has like her lipstick that like brushed off of it when she was singing. I will say that I'm very curious to see how her voice would have changed over the years. I wouldn't be surprised if she had a career much like Adele's, in that the things that she was doing sounded really great and really passionate and were awesome, but also could potentially be a little bit harmful to the voice.
Okay.
I mean, Adele at this point has had vocal surgeries, and I think like her later work has probably led her to write music that's a little bit less demanding in the same way that her earlier work was.
Yeah.
And also maybe she's working with a coach that will help her avoid that. But
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents on how she sounds. I mean, definitely a special talent, and it's also amazing to know that she didn't even speak Spanish before she started singing
Yes.
Tejano music.
Right. Did you watch the movie?
No, I didn't. Actually, the one with Jennifer Lopez,
Yes.
long time ago. I didn't watch the series that came out on Netflix a couple years ago.
I actually have not watched the series, but the movie is really good and talks about how she didn't speak Spanish. But yeah, it's really sad. I also watched that video last night, just kind of rehashing what happened when I read that article about her killer coming up for parole. Just amazing what she did by 23, and super sad what happened.
Yeah, it's really hard for, I don't know. I feel like it's really hard for Latinos to break out into a market like the U.S. where it's so easy to pigeonhole folks into like this Tejano genre or this general like Latin genre, this world genre. There's a Latin Grammys, for Christ's sakes, that
Yes.
completely exists outside of the realm of what like the U.S. Grammys do, even though that music market is massive and has just as much clout. But to know that she was so close to breaking out and she had this universal appeal even before she had those English language hits, really amazing.
Yep. Snuffed out by a gun. One shot. She didn't even have a chance.
Yeah.
It was a really, really terrible way that she died.
Yeah, pour one out. Pour one out.
Yeah, don't drink it, just pour it.
Yeah, pay your respects and also drink less.
Yes.
I want to talk about something a little bit lighter. Being in Texas, we're huge San Antonio Spurs fans. It's been a good time to be a Spurs fan. We have family that lives just outside of San Antonio, so they've been around from the Spurs heydays. Just want to hear like what you're experiencing with Wemby so far.
Well, I haven't gone to a game in person, unfortunately.
I want to go real bad.
Yeah, I would love to see him up in person, up close, because I don't think that seeing it on TV is doing justice to how massive he is.
Well, he's crazy on TV too.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the most frustrating things that I've experienced ever since he's been in the league, which has obviously not been a long time, but pretty much like every time I look at like, when are the Spurs going to come to Chicago? I'm almost never there. I'm never there when the Spurs are coming to play the Bulls, so I haven't been able to see Wemby in person over there. But if I were available, I would make sure that I got my tickets.
When are they visiting Chicago next?
Maybe we should out.
Meet up. Yeah, last night I was watching the San Antonio-Denver game. Every single game, it's insane how good he looks. He's so massive, but at the same time, he can control his body properly.
Yeah. His shot consistency is getting better, too, which is crazy. Because I remember when he first came in, people were like, oh, he's overrated. Like, yeah, his form looks good, but he's not hitting the shots. But he's hitting the shots now.
He barely turned 21, I think, yesterday.
My God.
So watch out if he stays healthy. Last night he had a play where they threw him a pass, and it looked really weird. And he made the dunk pretty easily. And it just looked weird because of his body. Like his massive size, his massive wingspan. It just looks so easy. Oh. So I anticipate that if they can get a solid team around him, he's going to bring championships to San Antonio.
Yeah. What are you doing this week?
This week? That's a little too soon.
Because the Spurs are going to be in Chicago tomorrow.
You should go tomorrow
No,
and then report back.
I have rehearsal in the evening, but they're also going to be in Milwaukee on Wednesday, which is more
Okay.
likely, but also probably a little too short notice to try and go out there. I'm going to have to go whenever we're in Texas next. Probably maybe that Phoenix game on February 20th.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, for folks who don't know, like the Spurs go on this long road trip. I think it's in February every year, right?
The rodeo road trip.
Yeah, it's the rodeo road trip. It's not like some cute thing because they're from Texas and they're called the Spurs. Like, no, it's because the space where they play in San Antonio is home to a rodeo during that time.
But the rodeo trip's almost mythical because some of the championship teams in the past have kind of come together during that rodeo road trip. Like they've started to kind of gel when they're on the road during that trip.
Yeah, because I imagine like you spend all this time with just your teammates and your coaches and the rest of the staff, right? So you get much closer to them. Like when you're at home, you're probably there with your family if your family is with you there. So if you're on an extended road trip, you're just really just getting to know your teammates and trusting them a lot more.
And probably also not having the distractions of being back home, family responsibilities and whatnot.
Yeah, eating a bunch of barbecue in San Antonio,
A bunch of tamales and barbacoa.
swimming in the river on the Riverwalk. I don't know if people would do that. That sounds gross. I wouldn't personally.
Well, we should definitely see Wemby at some point because it looks like he's a generational talent.
Yeah.
If he stays healthy, he's going to get championships. He's probably going to get an MVP.
Yeah.
And he's only 21.
He's only going to get stronger, too. Like, I keep on going back to looking at photos of Giannis in his first couple of years in the league, and he looks very skinny. He looks like a lost deer at times. Like, he still has the motor, right? He still has some of that mentality that we're familiar with him, but my God, he is a chiseled mass of stone at this point.
That's what happens when you get to pro basketball at the NBA level. You start getting trainers that work with you, nutritionists, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look at KD. KD was also extremely skinny and
Yeah.
just got pushed around. And over time, he got a little more bulked up, a little more strong, and took it to another level.
Like, it's just the amount of time, too, right? Like, there's only so much time for you to work on your game as you're developing as a player. So, like, of course, you're not taking for granted your body, but, like, if you really need to dedicate some time to working on your body, of course, you're not going to have as much time for your game. I mean, they are full-time athletes, but at the same time, there's only so much time in a day you can exercise.
Yeah.
Like, imagine, like, your current workout schedule. What, you work out 3 times a week right now
Yes.
on, like, heavy weights, right? And you're also trying to toss in some runs to train for a half marathon, right? Imagine if you're doing both of those nearly every day.
That's a lot.
Yeah, but you're also, like, 40, so.
I'm 43. And it doesn't take much for me to get injured at this point, which sucks.
Yeah, what was your last injury?
I wasn't it like 2 weeks ago when my knee just started hurting? Just jogging around the tennis court. Took about a week and a half to get a lot better.
Yeah, that was very confusing because you weren't doing a lot of high-impact movements there.
I was not. I literally just jogged to get a ball.
Well, it's good to know that you're better now.
Yes.
Speaking of, like, Wemby and the NBA, like, have you been hearing about the downward trend in NBA viewership? Like, are people panicking? What's going on?
I think the first I heard about it was that clip of Colin Cowherd saying that the viewership was down due to wokeness, which I thought was ridiculous. Like, why is it always about that? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. The league has kind of always been pretty woke. I mean, like, Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were all, like, progressive civil rights icons.
I don't know. And I know that LeBron and others have worn shirts during specific things that happened, like the I Can't Breathe shirts, things like that.
Yeah.
To me, that's not extreme wokeness. That's just kind of a protest or being vocal about things that you think are wrong, which is totally normal.
Yeah.
and within our rights, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's the issue at all, though. I think there are a lot of different factors that come into play. For one thing, I think there's just so much going on now on Netflix, on other streaming services, so many different things to do. I think it's hard to keep up with the full NBA season.
Yeah.
It's a lot of games to keep up with. When you have a job, when you've got Netflix shows you want to catch up on, Hulu shows you want to catch up on. I think that's the issue with the MLB too.
Yeah.
I can never keep up with MLB because they also have a lot of games. I think they have about 160 regular season.
Oh my God. That's too
So
many.
I think the number of games is hard to keep up with, especially when we have so much competing for our attention. Like I said, streaming. I guess social media could be one thing too.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting lost in Instagram or TikTok or whatever. I also think that we're just in a little lull right now because we haven't really determined who the big stars are yet. You said Wemby?
Wemby, Giannis has been here for a minute, you know, like who cares about Joel Embiid? I don't know what's going on with that guy, but I mean, Jokic has put together season after awesome season, including that championship run. Like,
Yeah.
we have stars, you know, SGA's coming up too.
But maybe the NBA is not doing a good job about showcasing who we should consider the massive superstars. Steph Curry, LeBron, and KD were the big ones, right?
I do get tired of some of this programming where we almost have to program the Lakers and Warriors by rote, even when they're like a middle of the pack team.
Yeah.
When I don't know, OKC is way better just because they're bigger markets that have a lot more money in them. Like if you're just showing the product because a lot of people are in that market, but the product itself is not like top tier quality because you know Steph and LeBron aren't who they used to be. I mean, they can still pull out some stuff that makes you wonder how they're still doing it, but overall, like the play is not the best that's happening in the league right now, and it's not being highlighted. We just get Boston, we get LA, and we get Golden State, right?
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of people who, I mean, Dallas isn't even a small market, but there were a lot of people last year who hadn't really seen the Mavericks play all year, and they're like, oh, is this quite possibly like the best duo in the league? They really might have a chance with the Celtics, and it's like, fuck, they are.
So I think that the league recognizes that people want to see Steph. People want to see LeBron. People want to see KD. The issue is that they're not as good anymore, which is normal.
Yeah.
That's going to happen as you're going into age 35 and above.
Yeah, 43.
But they haven't found but they haven't found like, or at least they haven't kind of created those superstars that can draw in people the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like what you're talking about with all of the media options probably plays in a little bit. I think there's a large highlight ecosystem on YouTube right now, and the NBA is involved with it too. House of Highlights is as well, which is kind of like under the umbrella of like the Turner sports stuff. But oftentimes you'll see like they overshot the sweet spot. Like you'll see that it's like what like a 9, sometimes if it's a lot of stuff happened, like a 11-minute video of just highlights of the game, which is almost like a perfectly condensed version of all of the important offensive plays and maybe a couple blocks or steals that are consequential. But you lose a lot of context of the game. Basketball YouTube is also pretty huge right now. I mean, you have creators who kind of came up to the street ball scene or have been doing like their own videos that are bringing in other NBA players, but you know, the NBA is aware of it, right? When they had their, was it Summer League? There was something recently where they had their Creator Cup. Maybe it was like around the in-season tournament in Vegas, where basically anyone who was like a high-profile basketball YouTuber came and played on 2 teams that were coached by some of the old hats who were also basketball YouTubers, if you know, like Lethal Shooter or The Professor. And sure, like the stadium wasn't like super packed, but those people gave a shit. That game went down to like 1 point, and the fans who were there were really happy to be there. And for the creators too, it's great for their YouTube business as well. They can just continue feeding that. But almost to a certain extent, like this whole like personality one-to-one ecosystem is where a lot of these views are going, right? And some of these stars they're private, and some of them are super out of touch. So I think people are kind of shifting away from that a little bit too. But I don't know, like just going back to watching games more regularly, I think people will be able to see how amazing the stuff that people are doing are.
But I've touched on it some that the NBA can create these superstars. So they could decide that they're going to start showing a lot of Dallas games.
Yeah.
Showing a lot more OKC games to showcase SGA. So they could definitely do that. There's no reason why they have to keep putting Warriors games, Lakers games on. I will say, though, that I think that Boston is kind of boring. Like, as far as the personalities, I think that that's an issue when your champion isn't that exciting.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people said that about the Spurs in the early 2000s, that was kind of a dark time for the league before, Steph Curry really got into MVP form.
Yeah.
I think like the efficiency isn't necessarily the most entertaining thing for folks.
Yeah. I mean, these things are going to happen. You're going to have lulls, but at the same time, the NBA could do a better job at showing everyone Luka, showing everyone SGA, and Anthony Edwards, people like that.
Yeah. I don't know. Ant's kind of trailing off right now. He was like complaining about being doubled in a post-game interview recently.
That's a weird complaint.
Yeah, because if you're the best player on the team, that's going to happen.
Yes. Yeah, so that's an issue that they're not really showcasing or creating superstars like they should.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier too, there's too many games to keep up with, and now they're competing with this whole diet of Netflix and other shows and social media.
Yeah, I will say that the Knicks are pretty solid right now as far as like major market teams go. And they got a ton of star power too. Like Jalen Brunson is super fun to watch. I'm seeing like not like main league NBA, but I'm seeing like a lot of G League buzz around Yuki Kawamura. Do you know who that is?
No, I actually am barely catching up because I had law school up till the beginning of December, and so I'm barely catching up.
So like, Yuki is this like 5'8" Japanese dude who people really started following during the Olympics because he was kind of like this sharpshooter who had like all these like crazy assists during that Japan's time in the Olympics, and he's now a member of Memphis's G League team. I can't speak as to his defensive statistics because smaller players tend to be a liability anyway, but he produces a lot of highlights for them between the shots that he makes and some of the flashier assists that he does too. I mean, he just looks like a normal guy at a normal height, just running around these massive dudes of the G League. Look up some videos.
I'll have to do that right after.
And you know what? People are not going to be able to see this, but I'm going to share my screen anyway, just so that you can see this guy.
All right.
He's fun.
And you're saying he's in the G League right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It all comes full circle, right? I mean, if you can go to a Memphis game, like I don't remember what their G League team is called, but if you can go to a Memphis game with Nathan and go see Yuki, I feel like it will be fun. People love that guy. Let's see. Let's do this one where he drops 23 points against the Clippers like 8 days ago. Like, look at that footwork. Like, this is like it's a Memphis hustle. Like, this is like
How tall is he?
he's like 5'8".
Yeah, he looks a little small. So that's the issue that might arise. He needs to get space.
He can really dish the ball.
He could still be a good player. Maybe not a starter on the NBA at that size.
Yeah.
But in certain situations, he might be a good role player.
Yeah. I mean, when was the last time you saw a smaller player really take up a lot of time? Was like Nate Robinson, maybe?
Maybe. And wasn't he more of a role player? I don't think he was like a regular starter throughout
Yeah.
his career.
I feel like when some teams were tanking, he was a starter. I feel like there might be some Charlotte Hornets highlights pre LaMelo.
I will say that one thing that was mentioned that might be impacting the viewership is that someone felt that the international players aren't helpful as far as getting United States viewership.
Yeah, I heard.
I don't know why that would be,
Yeah.
personally.
I heard Bill Simmons talk about that a little bit. I don't know if it's like a relatability thing.
I mean, I feel like Luca relates to everyone. I just feel like he has that star power, that universal appeal.
Yeah.
He's got that megawatt smile.
Yeah, and sometimes he just looks like a regular guy, like someone you would see at the local gym playing pickup. Because he's not like super fast, right?
No, I mean the NBA could definitely showcase him more. So that might be, like I said before, the NBA's fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was watching. I know like some people were talking about how maybe it's like, oh, it's all the threes. The 3-point attempts are making it very hard to watch. But I was watching a Thinking Basketball video. It's this guy have you watched Thinking Basketball?
No.
It's this guy like who started this YouTube channel a while back, and now he's actually making some videos for the NBA. Like, he got such a YouTube following that the NBA is like, hey, like make some like basketball analytics videos because we could use your viewership. But his whole thesis was that the reason why we're in the middle of another 3-point boom, and we've gone through multiple periods statistically where there were more 3-pointers that were being hit over time. But a lot of it is not necessarily that offenses are saying go shoot as many threes as possible. It's really what the defenses are giving them. A lot of their options are being cut off towards the paint because, of course, like even compared to threes, those are highly efficient shots. And with some of the zones that people are playing, it's just way easier to go out and find an open three that, of course, folks are going to take. And it's very rare that you'll see the riskier, less efficient mid-range jumper. And now you're just seeing folks who are just spraying the floor out a little bit more, trying to counteract that. But then they collapse toward the middle, and then you find that open three again. So, like, why aren't you going to take the shot if your person is above average?
I don't see a problem with the threes. That doesn't bother me. I think there are going to be different eras where the game is a little different. I think it's more interesting than when you had NBA Finals games with, like, San Antonio and Detroit that were, like, 80-point games.
Yeah.
The only problem I have with it is sometimes, for example, the Warriors would do things where, for example, Iggy would be right at the basket and then would kick it out. It's like, what are you doing, dude? That should have been an easy layup. Why did you kick it out for a three? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, this is like just like alternate timelines moment. Thinking about like Ben Simmons doing the same thing in that Atlanta series a few years back, that basically ended his reputation.
Yeah, like they overthink it sometimes. It's like you're right at the basket, dude. Just take the easy two. That's the only problem I have with it. I think all this movement, trying to get it to an open 3-point shooter can actually be pretty beautiful. I think the Warriors at one point just looked amazing with what they were doing with their movement, trying to get those open threes. So I don't see a problem with it. Things are going to change. I'm sure at some point they'll go away from threes, and then at some point they'll go back to threes.
Yeah. And I think the flashy but effective play will come from someone again. I feel like Wemby is probably the next coming of that, because like some of these players that we talk about as being, the former stars that are starting to age out, like LeBron, KD, Steph Curry, they all had this point in their careers where they went through these stretches where they're doing this, like, how the hell did he do that kind of things, like hitting game winners in the way that they did with very little space, just having the sheer athleticism to get to the rim and make shots when it mattered. But then you're seeing like some of these other stars, like say Luca, right, or Ant, who have all this ability, all of this talent, but when it comes down to like the final moment, they're not quite making it. They're not quite acting on that heroism. Of course, like one person can't win a game, and team basketball is kind of over everything. But I feel like Wemby is that next person who is just doing all these crazy things we've never seen before.
Well, we do already have someone though who's doing those things. When you said that person that does things that are unbelievable, essentially, that's Joker. But they don't create a superstar aura around him.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if he wants it. I feel like
Oh yeah.
He needs a whole PR department to do that for him. I mean, there's just like memes about how much he just sees the game as work.
You don't necessarily have to have him be social. You just have to showcase his game.
Yeah, he does crazy stuff. Same thing for Jalen Brunson too, and at least he's getting like a platform in New York. Like the things that Jalen Brunson does are incredible.
Yeah.
Just the space that he is able to get at his size, his strength for his size and his footwork. It's really cool.
Has the NBA been showcasing him lately with weekend games or primetime games?
I think so. I mean, for like the East Coast slate, of course, like some of the later stuff tends to trend towards the West Coast, and it's harder to get people watching when it's a game that's starting at like 4 p.m. their time or maybe even earlier.
And that could be another factor in the viewership too. I think watching those late games is really hard, especially on school nights.
Yeah.
I don't want to stay up till midnight watching a basketball game. Like, I'm going to be tired all day because of a basketball game. You know? Doesn't make any sense for me.
When you're actually watching, the game, like it's harder to turn your brain off too. So it's kind of this marathon because there's always stuff that's going on at all times, right? It's not like football where, I mean, you had Red Zone on when I was with you, and there were like 4 games on, and with all 4 games on simultaneously, I think there was probably a break of maybe like 20 seconds or 25 seconds until anything happened in all 4 feeds. So you can kind of like passively watch that in a way and have a little bit of a brain break instead of just like seeing the ball getting whipped around, seeing all these actions, these screens and pick and rolls, the defensive maneuvering, like, oh, is there going to be a 3-second offensive violation that's going to happen on the side of the court? Like, there's just always something going on.
Yeah, it's a really great product that just needs to be presented in a different way. You need to have the superstars showcased. I think they'll be okay, but I don't think it has to do with wokeness.
You know that new in-game that new All-Star tournament's pretty woke.
What was going on with that tournament again?
It's like 4 teams, right? It's like the same number of All-Star selections are going to be split into 3 teams, and then they're going to have a Rising Stars team, and whoever wins.
And what was woke about that?
I don't know. I was just making a joke.
I think that's overthinking. I am not going to probably watch that many games that are All-Star games. I'm probably only going to watch the final.
I don't know. There's also like some part of me that kind of feels that the basketball season doesn't start until after Christmas Day, because that's like a huge like official like NBA holiday day, the way that the NFL has Thanksgiving and the Super Bowl, and it just feels like after like everything before that is a warm up. And then after that we have some momentum, but then that momentum gets lost in the All-Star break.
Well, maybe you can start the season with the NBA Cup or whatever it's called. And that doesn't count towards your regular season record. Then after that's done, start the regular season, like 60-game season. Yeah,
it's very interesting, like what kind of stuff the G League is trying out, because I was very surprised that when we went to those games, like those were the first games of the RGV Viper season in December, but they had a whole slate of stuff. They had basically an entire winter showcase and exhibition tournament prior to actually starting. I don't know what the actual details are. Another thing they're trying out there too is the free throws. They're doing like the system where basically up until the final 2 minutes of the game, any free throw on a missed shot is just one free throw attempt for the entire value of the shot. So if you got fouled on a 2-point attempt, you only got 1 shot to make 2 points. But if you got fouled on a 3-pointer, you got 1 shot to make 3 points, right? It makes the game a little bit faster and kind of raises the stakes for each of those free throws until the end of the game, where that strategy is still important. And of course, if it's an and one, it's still only worth 1.
Well, and that's why I said what I said. It's not like a unique idea I came up with. It was based on what you had told me about the G League. I think what the NBA has going for it is the playoffs are really good. Like the drama.
Yeah.
My kid asked me once why I watch the NBA, and I'm like, man, the drama is amazing, especially in the playoffs. Like, it's so good. So you can kind of manufacture a little more drama by having a cup at the beginning.
Yeah.
So something that's actually worth money at the beginning. And also shorten the regular season so the games mean more. Yeah. So if the games are a lot more valuable, then people will be a lot more interested in the games, and then also the players will work harder.
Yeah, and they won't get run into the ground by just letting their bodies break down from all those games. Though
Yeah.
I think it'll be hard for owners to reduce the amount of revenue that they're pulling in from just the sheer amount of games and the TV deals that they've signed.
Well, on the front end, you'd have the NBA Cup.
So that's it. We fixed the league. It's
Yeah.
better now.
Yes, clearly.
We've talked a lot
Yes.
for the moment. I'm getting parched, and I can't wait to do this again when Nathan actually has his health about him.
He's going to have a lot of follow-up on this one.
Nathan like actually plays basketball and played basketball in high school, and he has a lot of thoughts and he keeps up with it. I'm sure there's things in this pod where he'll be like, "What the hell were you guys talking about?"
All right, well, until next time.
Yeah. See you later.